Welcome to Tip TV Finance, where it's CEO interview time with David Fraser, who's CEO at Great Western Mining. How are you today, David?
I'm very well indeed, thank you.
Right, I believe celebrations are in order with the share price jump that there's been on resource upgrade. But first, before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, we're going to look at a little film which tells us, hopefully will tell us a bit more about your company.
Yes, indeed.
Let's have a look at that.
Okay. First thing I would say is this video is on our website for people to view at their leisure.
Right.
We're in the United States, so that's as close as possible to zero sovereign risk as you can get. And our claims are in Nevada, right on the border with California. So Nevada's a Tier 1 mining jurisdiction, established legal infrastructure, and very pro-mining. So here we are, this is the Hunting Valley. We're now flying over our M4 prospect and zooming in on M2 prospect where we had the resource announcement. So to the north here is our resource collars. This is the Sharktooth Peak, and down the south we have the historic Smith mine. We have no records of the grades or tonnage at Smith, but as you can see there's good mineralisation.
Well, that's the photo that we saw, I think, 2 or 3 years ago when you appeared on the programme.
That's correct.
It seemed that you didn't actually even need a shovel to get the copper in that hill.
A little bit, yes, indeed. And if we now look at the drill holes, we see the 2 drill holes to the right of the screen are the Sharktooth Discovery Hill holes. And as we go to the left, these are the main resource drilling. You can see it's in 2 clusters. We've followed the road up onto the mountain. It does leave a bit of a gap in the middle. And the reason we did this was we wanted to keep below the 5-acre disturbance limit that they have in Nevada for the BLM. As we go down underground now, you can actually see that gap is much more apparent. And the significance of this is effectively for the JORC resource estimate. Effectively what we have is 2 discrete ore bodies, so even though the mineralisation is continuous between the 2, we're not allowed to count them. So Cohen and Associates have estimated the resources using block modelling software, and their estimate is 17 million tonnes of 0.5% copper, 23% of it is indicated, and we also are very pleased for the first time to have an independent estimate of the Sharktooth Zone, the exploration target under the Sharktooth Zone. So the work programme scheduled for this summer, twofold really. First of all, we want to do the prep work to fill in the gap in the undrilled zone, because we think there's another 3 or 4 million tonnes of 0.5% copper. And then secondly, we need to do the prep work for Sharktooth resource drilling. In 2015, we rolled over our license to drill, and so we have another 2.5-acre disturbance limit. We have 2 holes already permitted there, so we're hopefully going to get onto that very quickly indeed. So the Sharktooth is the main ore body, which you can see much more clearly on this geological map. So we think this is the source of all the mineralisation in the area. And if we look at this in cross-section, you can see on the left-hand side, this is the north of the mountain with the open pit resource, and it dips down to a much higher grade IOCG structure in the centre of the mountain underneath the Sharktooth Peak.
Right, I mean, as I was said before, you appeared on the show with that photograph standing in front of a mountain, and it seemed to be that, I mean, it was intriguing in the sense that you didn't have to be a geologist necessarily to see that there was something going on there.
Yes.
But the nature of the game, as I said at the time, was that private investors and the market in general, the small caps, either they don't give you any benefit of the doubt. I mean, they want to have the copper or the gold hit them on the nose before they'll upgrade the valuation at all.
Exactly, and I think for us, we try and do things to a JORC standard, so we're careful in the work that we do, and you know we release information as soon as we feel we have something which is notable to be released, and the release that we had on Monday, we thought was a very significant sort of development for the company.
Right, a couple of points there. I mean, do you think that, I said it's a bit of a binary situation. The market doesn't give you any of the benefit of the doubt. Was the company fairly valued before? I mean, in terms of what the resource was at that time, or what the judgment was then?
Not in my view, but I think it's been a difficult couple of years for the resource sector, and I think you, as you say, you really have to hit people in the face with something which is exceptional for them to sit up and take notice. And I think, again, I just reiterate, we're in Nevada. The world is becoming a more politically unstable place. There's a lot of resource nationalism. There's very few targets of this potential size in a safe jurisdiction like North America.
Right, but obviously, Mr. Trump, if he gets his way, there'll be lots of infrastructure benefits to your company as well, presumably.
I think that's put the focus back on the resource sector rather than be specific to us. But we're a copper play. Copper is obviously a clean tech resource, and for instance, there's 4 times as much copper in an electric car as there is in a petrol car. So I think the long-term outlook for copper still looks very attractive.
Right. I mean, you've had the upgrade this week. What were you expecting there to be? I mean, is this more or less what your expectations were?
I think I said when I was first on the programme, the market decides what the valuation is. It's up to us to just provide the information. My view is yes, that we were extremely undervalued. We're sitting on a very low market cap with an inferred resource, even though it might not have been the largest.
Is there more resource there than you imagined, let's say?
I'd say yes and no. I'd say the resource the upgrade we got to our current drilling it was pleasing that we got some of that indicated, so that was a little bit better than we expected. But if you like, the exploration target, the first independent estimates, that is towards the bottom of the range of what we actually think could be there. I mean, I don't want to talk silly numbers. It's something I've always tried to avoid to do, but the sort of range that we have for the potential underneath the Sharktooth is more like 60, 70 if we're pessimistic, so a little bit lower than what we have now. But the optimistic is a sort of a factor of maybe 8 to 10 times that, so it could be as much as 600 or 700 million tonnes. So our aim now is to prove up as quickly as possible, at least get to an inferred resource stage on at least part of that, so at least we can demonstrate that the geological model that we're using is correct, and then I think the evaluation will be very interesting indeed.
Right. Well, the share price has hit 2 pence, I think, earlier today. It's presumably one would wait and see how the dust settles. Yes. In terms of the market reaction and everything else. But what are the next steps for the near term? Well, what's for the rest of 2017? What are you going to be doing? Well,
we already have prior to this announcement. We have quite an extensive field camp already planned for this summer. We have people out there for well over 2 months on our. We have some private land in Marietta. They'll be camping out. So as I said, the priorities this summer is we need to fill in that gap because we can quite simply increase the existing resource that we have by drilling a couple of holes in the centre of the strike, and then that will allow us to link the 2 discrete zones together. And we want to rework with the BLM, which we have a very good relationship. We want to resubmit our current drill permit to do some resource drilling on the Sharktooth. Now, whether or not we can get the actual drilling done this autumn, but we certainly want to be in a position to do that. I mean, we got caught out a little bit last year because the weather was quite bad coming across from California. So, we'll try and get that done as soon as we can this summer.
In terms of the cost of all this, how are you positioned on
that? Well, we raised a little bit of money at the end of last year, so we are financed for the immediate amount of work that we do. But at some point in the future, you don't build a mine of this size without raising sufficient money.
Now you've got something to shoot for here.
Exactly. This is the thing. So, I mean, our strategy always has been, we really want to get as far as we can to prove up this resource. This could be a world-class deposit. So, inevitably, at some point, we will be looking to partner up with and do a JV with a major company, but we want to make sure that as much of the value that we can is in our shareholders' pockets at that point, and not leave everything on the table for these guys to hoover up at the end.
After you've done all the dirty work.
Exactly.
David Fraser, CEO at Great Western Mining, thank you very much for coming in today, and keep us updated.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.